Hello, everybody. So before we start, and we have until?
We have until 12:15.
You're going to give me extra 5 minutes, right? Right. So before we start, I like to lead sessions when I know who the people who sit with me. And so let's make a quick, what's your name and where you're from? And we can start with you.
Cool, my name's Rami. I'm from Los Angeles. Originally born in New Jersey.
Cool. Right or left?
I'll go right.
Alim.
Okay. I'm Talia, originally from Memphis, Tennessee, currently from Jerusalem.
Elad, born and raised in Ra'anana, currently living in Tel Aviv area, Ramadan.
Julia Winston, originally from Austin, Texas, and now living in San Francisco, California.
Yuval Yarden, originally from here, well, Kibbutz and Shafet, and now living in Philadelphia.
Tomer Naor, originally from Jerusalem, and I am from Jerusalem. Israel.
Jake, I'm from Syracuse, New York. I'm living in Guatemala.
Fernando Camisar, originally from Salta, Argentina, is a northern city, and I'm still living there.
Ross Heyman from Chicago, living in Oklahoma.
Carolina Bay, from San Francisco, now in Tel Aviv, on my way to Panama and Mexico and other places.
Cool place.
Yes.
Take us with you.
You're all invited.
Oksana, originally from Ukraine, now from Jerusalem.
I'm Bailey, I'm from Canada, and now I live in London.
I'm Kat. I'm from Montreal, and I still live there.
I'm Moran, originally from a small moshav in the center of Israel, past few years from Tel Aviv.
Hi, I'm Tal, originally from New York and now in Tel Aviv.
And
Yael, originally from Fars, Koshitsia, now living in Boston.
Portia from Budapest, originally.
welcome. So before we begin, I want to ask you to do something interesting. I didn't ask for your professions, what you do for a living, what you do in your life, but I guess that in some point you joined into meetings. It could be a professional meeting, it could be a meeting that has to do something with your volunteer or your nonprofit organization or anything else that's interesting you. And I'm sure that in some point along the way you had a meeting that really frustrated you. That you left the meeting and you felt that was a waste of my time. And I want to ask you to close your eyes for a second. Close your eyes. Close your eyes. And go back to this meeting. Now first I want you to try and remember and actually try to re-feel what you felt. What was the frustrations coming from? Did it came from the fact that you may felt that no one is listening to you? Did it came from maybe the fact that you felt that someone else is talking something that you disagree with or you maybe felt offended from? Maybe you were disappointed because you felt that this was, as I said, a waste of your time. That you could have done something way better with your time, that you kind of, I don't know, earn something better for yourself or for your company or for your organization. And now I want you to keep staying in a moment, but I want you to look around. I want you to see who are the people who are with you in this meeting. No. Stay in don't open your eyes, of course, for those of you who open their eyes. How did you sit? Was there a table? Did you sit in a circle? Look at the room. Look at the person who held the meeting. Did you have eye contact with him? Did he approach you? How did you approach him? I want you to look at your colleagues. Who are they? Do you know them all by name, by profession? Did you spoke with them earlier? Try to go back to the moment in the meeting that you ask yourself, what is the point of this meeting? What do we want to get out of it? And do we feel that we are on the way to get to what we want to get into? Take another 10 seconds, let's say, because we don't have a lot of time today. Stay in this moment. And come back to me. Hello. I want you now to take 2 minutes. You have your clipboards. and try to write yourself in bullets the things that I asked you. What was the meeting about? Who were your colleagues? The things that you just saw. Your relations with your colleagues, with the person who held the meeting. How was the setting of the room? What was the meaning or the purpose of this meeting? And how did you felt? And if you tried, and if you made it actually, why did you feel the way you felt? Why did you feel what you felt in this meeting?
Could you repeat that?
Yeah, we just went back in our, let's say, guided imagination to a specific meeting that you felt frustrated, that you felt that you wasted your time. So I want you just to write down for yourself. You won't have to share it. What did you saw? Who were the people that were sitting with you? What was the setting of the room? Who was the person who led the meeting? How did you feel and why did you feel what you felt? All right. So hi, my name is Tomer from Israel, 32 years old. For many years, I used to work in the informal education. I used to be a group moderator. I used to work with groups, with circles, leading sessions, most about identity and what do I want to do with my life. In some point, I moved into the field of law. I became a lawyer, an attorney. I work for actually one of Israel's largest NGOs, watchdog organization that monitor the government. And that gave me an opportunity to start going into some kind of different circles, different meetings. I start going quite often to the Knesset. I start having meetings with the Israeli authorities. I start having meetings with business people and with people that consider to be very professional in what they do. Leaders, if you like, managers, high-rate managers, parliament members, ministers. And I realized that in some point, those people can be really good at what they do, but when it comes to run a meeting or a circle or a gathering or what we call in Hebrew yeshiva, because we're sitting usually in those things, something doesn't work. And something doesn't work means that a lot of people leave those meetings, don't really understand what was the point of it. Maybe a little bit frustrating, feeling that someone wasted their time. Now, time wasting have a lot of impacts. If you're working for a business company, so time equals money, you know? Someone wasted your time, someone wasted your money, you could have done something else better with yourself. If you're a manager and someone sits in a meeting with you and you want him, I don't know, you want to empower him in some point, you want to get something more creative out of him, you want him to impact his fellow workers or fellow organization colleagues, and he sits there in the meeting and he thinks, I'm wasting my time, what the hell am I doing here? So you missed him, and maybe in the future you also lost him as one of your employees or one of your colleagues. And in that point, I realized that I have a skill. I'm coming from the informal education. I see myself as an educator, even though today I am a lawyer. Sorry. I have a skill in my hands, and I can use it. I don't know to teach will be the wrong way to say it, but I can use it to bring the educator in me into the world of business, into the world of nonprofit, if you like, into the world of law, which is a very boring world sometimes. So what I want to do today in the 33 minutes we have left with is I want us to try and sharpen the skill. Now, some of you may have early experience with group moderating, with consulting, with guiding. A lot of people think that being a good group moderator is something of charisma, maybe, something that you might have or does not have, and you can't really learn it. I will disagree with that. I think that there's some kind of basic skills that you can learn and you can sharpen and you can use in order to run a better meetings, to moderate better groups wherever you are. And it doesn't matter what is the purpose of the meeting and who are the people who sit next to you, as long as you prepared yourself earlier and you set yourself some goals to the meeting and you know exactly what you want to do. Now, that can hold 6 meeting sessions, but we only have half an hour, so we try to do it fast, and we try to touch it with points, and I hope that we're going to have enough time to try and practice Gesundheit, to try and practice for at least 10 minutes. So the way I see meeting running or group moderating or leading a session is some kind like surfing. Anyone surf? No, never?
I like, but I can't.
All right, so surfing, I used to surf when I lived in Australia, and I used to call people in Israel, yeah, you know, I'm surfing, and then I was with a board in the water. I really didn't surfing because it's hard. But once you learn how to surf, it's really hard to catch the wave. Like you struggle, you want to go first into the water against the waves, and every time a wave comes and takes you up, and you try from the right, you try from the left, you try to duck, there's like a duck diving, and then the waves come to your direction and you try to surf. The first time you'll fall, the second time you'll fall, the third time you might almost do it and then you'll fall. But in some point, after a while, you catch the wave. And once you surf, you want it, and it's easy, and things go like you want, and you look at things, and you just need to sharp a little bit the movement, but you're already on the wave. And I think that a lot of group moderating is the same, because you go into the group, you go into the meeting, and you have an idea of what you want to do, right? You want to surf. So you know where do you want to put the end of the session, but you need to somehow do the fine-tuning to make the people, to make your board, if you like. Board, you realize? Board meeting. You take the board to go with you, to move with you, to be a part of you, of your desires, of what you want to do, of what you want to gain from this meeting. So I think the first thing I want to talk about is what's your end game, right? You go into a meeting, you know that you want to earn something. By the way, everything is written on the papers I made, but you can add to it. What's your end game? You go into a meeting and you know that you want something out of it. You, as the organizer, you know that you summon amount of people, right? We're going to talk about who are those people in a second. What's your end game? Ask yourself, do I want them to leave the room with a question, right? Do I want now to speak for like an hour so they will leave the room with a question that maybe in a few days from now we're going to have another meeting that I want them to come, Gesundheit, that I want them to come with answers for this question, right? So how do I plan my agenda, and we're going to touch the agenda soon, how do I plan my agenda towards creating this curiosity within them so they will come up with a question, right? That's the first one. Some will say, I want them to come with an answer. Now we have some question already on the table. Maybe it's a question that I put already like a few days ago in a different meeting. Maybe it's something urgent. There might be a crisis, or I don't know, there's something we need to deal with in our company. And I need a quick answer, right? I need to go back to my board, and I need an answer from my colleagues, from my employees. How do I create, how do I surf my way into the answer I want? Another thing that can be, I want just to deliver a message, right? You know, that's going to be an informative meeting. I want you to sit with me, and I want you to listen to me. I need you less now to talk. I need you more to listen, but I need to think of a way. I need to find a way for the message that I want to pass to you will be clear enough. So when you leave the room, when you leave the meeting, you know exactly what I wanted to say. And I know that you know, and I know that I gave you the exact message I wanted to give you. So when you leave the room, I'm sure enough that you left it with what I want you to leave. Now we just had a session in another paralleling, and one of the girls tells the story, and then some guy reflected the story she just told, and I was like, what? She didn't spoke about that at all. She said something else, and I was like, I heard something else. Actually, he understood her better than I did. But I think that if I wouldn't say that, and a lot of people, I have the Israeli chutzpah maybe to say I understood something else. But sometimes people would just, okay, if he understood that, maybe he writes. And then they leave the room, and you'll never know if they really understood what the message that you want to bring. And the last thing is a lot of information, okay? There's message you want to deliver, but there's also information that you want to give people when they leave the room. So now the question goes is how? How do you do it? And the first thing is you set your end game. You sit before the meeting and you say, now I have a meeting. There's a certain purpose to this meeting. How do I get to the point that I deliver whatever I want to go? And how do I get to the point that I actually put the end game on the table? If you know, and I guess all of you gave speeches before. There's a huge difference between a person that gave a speech that he wrote before, that he thought about what he wanted to say, that he read it in front of the mirror, in front of the friends, and people told him what to do, or a person that goes and start talking, and at some point he might lose his ideas, he might lose the line, and he start mumbling. I don't want to say bullshit with the camera, so I won't say it. Oh, I just said it. Okay. Same goes with meeting. If you know in advance exactly what you want to be the purpose and the end game of the meeting, it makes it easier for you to shift your way into the purpose of it, into create the effect of the meeting that you want. Who sit with you in the room? That's something that you should think about before you go into the room. So there's few options, right? You might be the manager of those people. So the people, the audience is your employees. You know them all. I hope you know your employees. You know the weaknesses, you know the strengths, you know how to use them in order to serve your end game from the question before, right? You know how to play with your board in order to get back to the shore, get to the beach. Ask yourself who are the people who are going to sit in your meeting, how many people are going to be in your meeting, and what is your personal relations with those people, right? If you have a person in the meeting that you just maybe had a strong argue with him a few days ago, he maybe had hold some things in his stomach toward, like against you. I don't want to say against is a very bad word, but maybe he's not the right person now to start and like ask him the first question. As you probably know, usually the person who speaks first set an example and set kind of a line to the rest of the meeting. Ask yourself, who is the person that I want to ask the first question? Who is the person that I want to set an example? Who can be a creative mind? Who might be the person that can lead others towards the purpose, the end game of the conversation? Ask yourself also, who are the people that usually, in some point of the meeting, will find themselves playing when I don't have my cell phone with me, but playing with their cell phones, or losing themselves. Or I noticed that usually in the meetings, they kind of staring, and then when we leave the room, they have no idea what we talked about. You know, try to identify who are those people. Now, that's when those people are your employees. Many times, you're going to lead a meeting with your colleagues. Same question goes again. Try to define your personal contacts with your colleagues. Try to understand, or maybe think of how they see you and what maybe you think you can give to them as a person, right? I mean, you all work in places, you know, some of the people are your best friends and some of them, not your enemies maybe, but you have some kind of, I don't know, struggle with understanding them, they have some struggles with understanding you. Try to think in the most positive way for you to deliver the message to them, and even try to use them, you know, maybe even use them and use the fact that people know maybe in your working environment that those people are not in the best relations with you. So when you ask them a question, why won't you give us from your experience? You know, in one hand you're empowering them, but in the other hand you put yourself in a position of, I don't want to say a grown up or a better person. For maturity and vocabulary that I missed this morning. That's another thing. Another kind of a meeting can be when you have to deliver a message or a purpose of a meeting to people that are your employees, that may be to a board, the people that, let's say, in a power position towards you. Same thing goes again. Who are those people? What do I know about them? What do I want them to see from me? And how do I keep them in the game? How do I keep them interesting? Usually, when it comes for people that, like, let's say a board meeting and you are the CEOs, or I don't know, try to give them, usually like startups, you try to sell them something in a way. There's still a meeting, you still have to run a session, you still have to moderate a group towards a certain purpose. Try to think, how do I keep them, let's say, in the game? How do I keep them interesting in my ideas, in my thoughts? And how do I bring them back every time let's say, to the same purpose, to the same end game that I want them to be in? That's when you know the people. What happens when you go into a meeting and there are surprises in the room, right? Like many times I go to the Knesset, for example. There's big sessions, about like 30 people around the table. And the chairman of the meeting, of the yeshiva, he has no idea who are the people that are going to show up and what will they say. And many times they attack him, I say, with questions or comments, and you see the difference between a person that actually prepared himself to the meeting, right? He wrote himself a bunch of Q&A that might happen. He prepared himself in a way that he know exactly what he can answer, like certain answers he might have if he have the questions. And you see a person that sit there and rely on the fact that he may be a good talker, but he doesn't have the right answers. So before the meeting, try to think who are the people that will come to the meeting, what will they be able to ask, what they might comment, and how you prepared yourself, whatever they will have to ask. And the last thing, and I wrote it on the paper, who might be the champions, right? I said it before as like the person that you know that in any point of the meeting, if something goes wrong, you know, you go out of your agenda, maybe, you know, you feel like you're going to lose the wave. Who is the person that you can go, hey, Elad? So we just talked about how to keep the meeting alive and how to keep everybody around us. And I see that Rami is on the phone and doesn't really with us. So do you want to maybe for a second repeat on what I just said and maybe bring Rami back into the conversation?
Yeah, should I?
Yeah, why not?
Repeat what you just said, like you have to, basically at any point, like before you're entering the meeting, like you should find the champ, like if you're losing the way somewhere or you miss your agenda, losing the wave, as you said, like you have to know who this person is to ask him a question that will keep you back on track. See what it makes sense?
Thank you.
Sure.
Last thing is we want to talk about in the short time we have is the setting. So as you notice, I chose to sit in a circle, right? I'm a really true believer in circles for one reason. When you sit in a circle, there's nothing intimidating in the room. Think about it for a second. Circle is this geometrical shape when there's one spot in the middle and everybody is equal in their distance from the same spot. I'm leading the session now, but I'm sitting with you in the circle, right? I'm one of you. So I'm not your boss, even though I might be. I'm not your any kind of authority. I'm not funding you, or in the other way around, if I work for you, still now we are sitting on the circle, we are all equal. Another thing is that we all can see each other, right? So if someone is, you know, losing an attention, I can ask him a question, bring him back into the circle. You also see each other, which is sometimes very good. Interactive between people that sits together in a room is actually the reason why we're making those yeshivot, right? Those meetings. Otherwise, we could just sit on Skype and talk and, you know, maybe get the same effect. I'm a true believer in circle. Now ask yourself another question. Do I want a table in the middle or not? A lot of meetings held around the table. Why? There's no really good answer for it. Because we can put papers on it. Okay? Try to break the system. Okay? In my office, I start leading meetings with no table. Because I realize that many times the table is the cause for people losing their attention. Okay? There's something on the table. You can start drawing on it. Your cell phone is on it, and we're going to talk on cell phones in a second. But if you don't need to write something down, and even if you do, look, you're all writing something down now, maybe it will be a good idea to take the table out, because table is like a wall between us. You know, there's something that put me away from you guys. That one thing. If you want to deliver a message in a different way, you might want to think of, like we call it in Hebrew, chet, right? Like the shape of half a circle, or even, sorry? A horseshoe. A horseshoe, thank you. Which will put you in the middle. The good thing is, all the eyes are always towards you. The bad, or the less effective thing is again, you're losing the circle, and it's easier to people to get loose, to get lost in this kind of shape. Yeah, it was right. What is the atmosphere you want in the room? What will be on the walls? Will there be air condition? Will the window be open? You do it with open doors or not? You ask people before to leave their cell phones outside or to put them back in. I was in a meeting a few months ago with Israel State Comptroller, and when we get into the room, he asked everybody to leave their cell phone outside. And that was my first thinking as an Israeli, why you think we're going to record you or something? And he says, no. I realized that when people come with no cell phones to the meeting, meetings are almost half an hour shorter, and we get exactly what we want. And it's true. And by the way, quick anecdote: once the meeting was finished, everybody ran outside, started like checking their WhatsApp and everything, except one person. And I was like, oh, wow, you cool. And it's like, no, I have those Apple Watches. So you want to see those things happen as well. Accessories, right? I prepared myself to this meeting. Now we're having kind of a meeting, right? I knew already that I want you guys to write something down, so I asked the ROI people to give you those clipboards. I knew that I want to talk about a specific agenda, so I made sure that you're going to have the agenda in front of you. I thought about the things that I need for my meeting. If I needed a whiteboard, I would probably ask for a whiteboard meeting, a whiteboard class. If I needed a PowerPoint, and the nice people that that take in the photos were sure that I'm going to have a PowerPoint, and made them very nervous. But I could bring a PowerPoint, right? It's almost needless to say, but you know that if you need to give someone a slideshow or to put a movie, you will probably make sure that there's speakers in the room, there's electricity and everything, and you come 5 minutes earlier. What happens in the time that you come 5 minutes earlier and those things do not exist? That's a problem, right? But if you would think about it, let's say 2 days in advance, you might take these chances off. Okay, we have 15 minutes, and I do want to do some wrap up for this whole meeting. So I want us to take 10 minutes and try to practice what we just did. Let's divide. Yep. I will leave space for questions. I will make sure I will leave questions because this is still more things I want to say. That was very general knowledge, of course. First, I urge you all to come and ask me questions like in the free time. But I do want us to try and practice. It's really important. So let's divide to groups of 4, 3. How many of us in the room? Let's do it in 3 so a lot of people can practice. And in those group of 3, I want you to think of a meeting that you need to hold, let's say next week or in 2 weeks, something that you know that you're going to lead, one of you. And I want you to try and prepare yourself to this meeting. You have approximately 10 minutes for that. Use your friends, write yourself, I don't want to say agenda because we're going to touch the agenda after it, but try to prepare yourself by the key, the keys that we just touched on. And we'll come back here in 12:10 for 10 minutes of questions and asks. Yeah.
I think we can basically have one type of meeting, right? That we're delivering a message, because we can't practice asking them to give us.
Leading a group. But try to think, who are your audience? What is your end game? Where are you going to sit with them? Who are the people that sit with you in the room? What is your relations with them? All the things that I touched. Try to think, you know what? Let's not do it in a group. Take yourself some time, and then everybody can practice. In that case, take 7 minutes. So we have time for questions. Okay, so I want us to have some time for questions as well. So let's go back and try to wrap it up, and then we're going to have some time for questions. So a few things before we finish. Let's call it micro skills or some tips I want to give you. All right, so first, when you lead a session, ask yourself, what are my strengths? Okay, what am I good at? I know, for example, that I'm a good speaker, I'm a good talker. I talk a lot with my hands. And I know that when I hold a microphone, for example, I'm losing one of those things. So many times when I go to a conference, or when I need to hold a meeting with a lot of people, and they want me to speak with the microphone, I will ask them, for example, to give me one of those, or one of those, but never, ever hold the microphone in my hands, because then I lose myself. And then ask yourself, what are your strengths when you hold a meeting? What makes people think that you're interesting? What are the things that will bring them back to the conversation when they lose you? That's number one. Where your position in the room is important, right? That's another micro skill. Look, I started by sitting on a chair with you. In some point, I moved into the middle. I spoke with you when I was in the middle. Now I'm standing up, right? See the differences? Now your all eyes are on me. When I was sitting, your eyes were on your friend in the room. I can say it now. When a person's standing in front of a group, they will always look at him. When a person is sitting as a part of a circle, and as I said, you're earning something else, right? You want your people in the room will try to, there's a word in Hebrew say, אין סכין מתחדדת אלא על ירך חברתה. A sharp will always get sharper when it comes with another knife. Yeah, it's from the Gemara, by the way, here, a Jewish skill. Ask yourself, would you like the people to learn from you, to gain from you, or to gain from the people in the group? Set the rules to the meeting, all right? rules that might not be the person who talks is only the person that has something in his hand, I don't know, but set the rules like the rule with no cell phones, for example. Or the rule that first time talk and then will be questions in the end. People should need to know how the meeting is held for you to hold a better meeting. That's, yeah, you can say this sentence. Know your group. I started with this. I did a quick circle, remember, to know your names, just so I know where the people who sit with me. And if you don't know your group, so you're losing some people that you might want to use. How did I start this session? You remember? After I asked you for your names.
A visualization.
Exactly. Don't always go right away into the topic. Try to think of maybe a story you can tell, some experience you want to share. Why do we have what we're having today, right? I mean, I spoke of an end game in the beginning, but many times if you want to urge people to be more curious about the next session, about the next meeting, try to give them first, you know, your speech, if you like, something that will make them understand the importance of the next hour and a half. And if someone understands why is it important for him to be in the session, for him to be in a meeting, trust me, he won't feel that he wasted his time. Last thing is, and I go back for sitting, is the agenda. Once you finish to plan your meeting by the keys we just talked about, go to the agenda. How do you gonna hold the meeting, right? You're gonna put your speech first. Maybe you're gonna ask some person to talk about the topic. Maybe you call him before and say, I want you to be the first person who give the speech in the beginning of the meeting. Put yourself in it. Now you're gonna talk, now I'm gonna talk. Put time limits for it. So the meeting will go in certain times. Many meetings takes longer than what they should because there's no time schedule for it. Many meetings end with half of the people feel very frustrated because they didn't have a chance to talk, because the person who ran the meeting didn't thought before how much time will be to each speaker, and he didn't know who are the people who want to talk and what will they want to talk about. Always leave time for questions, like I'm going to do now. Always leave time for make sure that people understood the message, which mean not only questions they ask you, also questions you ask the people that are sitting with you in the meeting. The way I see meeting is to bring together a group of, I hope, very creative, maybe very, I forgot the word. Very talented people together, and hoping that something will grow out of this meeting. Otherwise, as I said before, we can do Skype meeting, we can do Hangout meeting, but we're losing the essence of bringing people together. Smart planning will increase both individual and group contribution added value. People give you the most important thing they have, I think, in this world, their time. Don't waste their time, and don't waste your own time. And we have no 5 minutes for questions because I demonstrate and do it at the same time. So thank you very much. Yeah.
What do you think about giving out printed agendas? Do you find it useful for the meetings?
I do, because it gives, well, there's pros and cons. So
Yeah.
the pro is that it gives people something to lean on and something to, like, you take out the, we call it חוסר הידיעה. It's something very scary that you don't know what you're heading into. The con for that will be that some people, and we all know those people, will say, I'm sorry, but now we're supposed to talk about this and this and this. But you already served to a different direction, right? It's your meeting. You can go whatever you want. So what I think is when you put an agenda, put it on general lines and not go specific to each item in the agenda.
Okay, and one more question.
Yes.
What's your opinion about the summary of the meeting? Like, how do you, because we've spoken about how to start and how to plan and how to lead, but I think it's not less important of how you, like, wrap it up, wrap it up, finalize it, and then just, you know.
So I go back to my end game, right? I began with my end game, I know exactly what I want people to have when they leave the meeting, right? Do I want them to leave with a question, with an answer, with an information? So I repeat the end game. Now I know already what I wanted. I didn't say it in the beginning, but I say it now. This meeting was for you guys to learn certain skills of how to lead a discussion. I gave you 3 main keys, which I believe will make your future meeting better meetings, which are the end game, the audience, and the setting. I urge you to ask yourself, how can you do better for the next time? I want to assure you that in the first times it might be a bit weird or hard or take some time of you, but when you go into it, it will take maybe 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and it's a skill that will make your meeting way better. That was example. Yeah.
Just had two quick ones. The first is, when should breaks or pauses be scheduled? So like after what period of time should we strategically schedule a break? And the second one is, if you do want to create a power dynamic in the room, so if I want to impose my authority as a CEO, how should I structure the meeting table? So I don't want to have a consensus-based collaborative, everyone's equal space in a circle, and I want to make sure that everyone knows that I'm leading and I have a power hierarchy. How should I structure that?
So for the first question, pauses there's two kinds of pauses. There's pauses to people to rest, and there's pauses for people to understand what we just spoke about. So the first one is easy because each meeting had some different topics on it that all combines to the end game, to the topic you want to talk about. So maybe when you plan those pauses, like once you finish a small micro topic, let's call it like this, do a pause, make people think, make them talk about it, and then like after a few pauses, you know that they understood that like there's 3, let's say, or 4 or whatever parts of your main goal, and that's one. Second, be aware of the people who sit with you, right? Look at each other. We had the person in this room that was all the time with his cell phone, so in some point I stopped, I paused, and I asked one of the members to bring him back to us, right? It was a pause. I didn't meant to do it. I didn't wrote myself, oh, and probably someone, no, I saw the group. I felt the group, and I felt that Elad is writing, so he probably with me and he understands what I'm talking about. And I felt that Rami that was sitting over there is on his cell phone, doesn't really paying attention. And for me, it was a good first to bring him into the conversation, to the meeting, but also a good setting an example for you guys. How do I pause and stop the meeting for him to go inside by using one of the members who were already in the meeting and understood. As for your position as a CEO in the room, again, there's I see it in few ways. I don't know how you are as a leader and how you are as a CEO. I think that the strong leadership is a leadership that comes from the within. And many times, if you go into meetings, you see that, and that's amazing because a lot of time a weak, let's call it, or less confident CEO will always want to sit in the head of the table, or have everybody like we call it half a circle with the eyes for him. But then, for example, if you ever have a chance to look at Israel Prime Minister, like every week, Israel government have a meeting and have like a round table, and the Prime Minister sits in the middle.
I share this is a topic also for women. I'm sure all the women in the room can acknowledge having been in a meeting where people presume you're the secretary. So sometimes I think artificially you need to exert your authority in a room as a woman, especially when you look young. Artificial, so regardless of our feelings about leadership and collaborative.
That's a very important thing.
So
and then again, so I will say the place when you feel the most comfortable for you to lead people, and I guess that you know yourself better than everybody else, and put yourself in a position in the room that first you know that you can see everybody and that you can feel the room and you can feel the people, and to play with the dynamic, I will say maybe so you should stand up in the beginning and then go and sit, or make people like choose. Yeah, for sure.
Like a really small trick that might be helpful if it's people that don't know you, because if they know you, then they know the role. But if they don't, put name tags with the roles.
That's
so
true.
Name tags on the table. Everybody knows where you're sitting. You can play around, and they know exactly where you're.
And then goes for accessories and knowing the audience.
I think if you exaggerate your position, that makes the contrary effect and doesn't empower you. You are showing a lot of debility. And I will tell you a short tale about Sarmiento is a prócer of Argentina. It's 1 minute. He came into.
She's the boss. So.
He came into a meeting, and someone said, "Please sit down in the corner." And he says, "The table has 3 corners, 2 in the point, and where I'm seated." So, to think.
So I like to lead by example, but I actually I wonder how to do this in the situation that I work in. So I'm on a project that basically we're like doctors on calls. We have to respond to our client within 30 minutes. So it's a very stressful environment, and I have a weekly meeting with my team, and the idea is just to go around to see what we're all working on, what questions we have, and I would like for people to leave technology out. I lose people on Facebook and on Instagram, and it's really, really distracting. But I myself have to watch email because I need to know what's going on. And if it's 30 minutes, it's fine, but if it's an hour meeting, I have to have somebody with their eyes on email. Are there suggestions on how do I designate someone else maybe? Do I ask others? So that's something that I was.
So for example, in this meeting, Talia asked me before, should I tell you 3 minutes in advance so you won't have to look at your watch all the time, for example. So I do believe, and it goes back to know the people that you're going to speak with, there might be someone that you trust, that you can ask him to be your eyes or your hands on some other things that will free you to lead the discussion. But, yeah.
Yeah, another idea there is to acknowledge with the group at the beginning. Like, I like to have a technology-free zone because then we can be more present, which is effective. I will have my phone because it's important for me to see what meetings are happening, what requests are coming through. Does everyone understand that, that's the scenario here?
Or the other thing that made me think, we could rotate that role every week because I have some people that are very disengaged with what the client is doing. Like, oh, Lana is watching, so I don't care. I literally had this conversation and I was like, oh my God, I need everybody to be aware of this. So I can ask, I can actually give them my phone because I have email on my phone, say, do you mind watching my phone? And so, thank you.
I also think there's value in, so in our organization, the CEO does not facilitate our executive meeting. I do. That's my job. I facilitate the meeting. It doesn't mean I'm in charge. But the CEO then is allowed to be fully present. He's not watching the time. He's not looking at topics. Chief of staff. So that's my job, and it allows him to be more present in the meeting. And then he also has an assistant, and she watches the time and looks at his email and makes sure that no one's waiting and this and that.
Yeah, I do that. So I have 2 volunteer boards that I lead, and I almost never speak at our board meetings. Like, I'll organize it and then like assign different parts of the meetings to different people. Also, so like different faces, different people speaking different styles, and like that allows the members to be more engaged because like they need to prepare and like be there. But also like it just changes things up, and it's not like now we're gonna listen to you all talk for an hour again. Like, and that allows me to be listening more than talking, which means I can like do take notes, do the follow-up and stuff instead of asking someone else to do that. Because I don't know about you guys, but when someone else takes notes on the meeting that you need to follow up with, and it's not necessarily the notes that you need or in the right format for you to be able to do the work. So I try to be the secretary of the meeting and not the leader of the meeting, even if I'm the convener of it. It works sometimes. It's like it's not the best way always, but it's worked.
All right, so do less things and then you go for your lunch. When I finish meetings, I try to do 2 things, both as the leader of the meeting and both as participant. I try to ask myself how I felt. What do I take from it and what do I not take? And it's best for people who run like scheduled meetings, like a weekly meeting in companies and in non-profit organization, how to improve for the next meeting. And the second is I listen. When meeting finished, usually I try to take like a minute and just listen to the voices. What are those people are now talking about? Do they talking about, remember the end game, what I want them to talk, like the first thoughts they have once they finish the meeting? Who do they speak with? Right, once a meeting finishes, you'll see one person goes from the other side of the room. Who is this person and who is the person he's going to speak with? And can I listen for a few words, for a few keywords of what they're talking about? And then for me is a way to understand or to realize, did I get, at least at the beginning, what I aimed for? Did I get the curiosity? Did I get my end game? Was I able to serve the board? So thank you very much. And I hope I gave you some help.